Hello, Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite,
and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing the ideas of gaming with culture, art, politics, science, and other things that we can talk about that you care about.
That's right. And we are where gaming goes to grab a beer, so we like to have a glass of beer with every episode, or bottle, I suppose. Usually a glass bottle. So, Termite, you purchased this wonderful, wonderful thing, so why don't you tell our listeners about it?
So you guys should be in the, second week of December, kind of in the middle of the holiday shopping season.
Yeah, the holiday season for you all has officially begun because Thanksgiving is over, so what's been driving me more crazy than anything else is not people singing Christmas music or decorating or any of that stuff. It's the people posting either for or against it on Facebook. I'm like, I'm sick and tired of seeing, like, whether you're pre-Thanksgiving or post-Thanksgiving a Christmas person, I don't care. Stop posting about it on Facebook. So those posts are all going to go away because now the official season has begun. So that's why I'm happy. That's why I will be happy now.
Social media is, though. Yeah. That's all it is, about just everything.
Driving you crazy about everything.
Yeah, or some sort of divisive thing, whether it's like you care if Christmas comes before or after Halloween. You know, it's like divisive. It's always going to put you into one or two of two camps. Yep. And that's what social media is for now. It's stupid. Anyway, we are drinking...
Side tangent.
It was. We are drinking Hardywood's Bourbon Barrel Gingerbread Stout.
Y'all, it's so great to live near Hardywood.
They are a brewery in Richmond.
They are, but they distribute across the
they do.
country. But people who live in California are never going to get to have this because this is like it's a limited release only around Christmas. They do a series. It's their gingerbread stout series. And the base gingerbread stout's amazing in and of itself. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a stout that's gingerbread. This is their gingerbread stout aged in bourbon barrels, so it's even extra kind of boozy. So you look so much like you want to read.
I just want to read one part of it. It just says, it's an imperial stout brewed with vanilla bean, cinnamon, fresh Casalmonte Farm baby ginger, and Bearer Farms wildflower honey. Gingerbread stout is then matured in Virginia bourbon barrels where it adapts incredibly mellow character with oak and caramel.
It's got a very, very good flavor profile. It's
extremely.
It's very complex. There's a lot going on. There's like nutmeg and like cardamom, like
ginger.
Basically, like if you could drink a beer that was how I imagine the Great British Baking Show's tent smells.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's great. This is. It's so good. My favorite is the Christmas morning, the Kentucky Christmas morning or whatever, where it's like...
They take the base gingerbread stout and they condition it with coffee, and then they age that in a bourbon barrel.
It's called Christmas morning, and it tastes like Christmas morning. It's so good. Yeah, I really enjoyed this whole series.
It is so good.
Yeah,
and every weekend in November they release a different one. Yep. So there's like a double barrel one where they age it in a bourbon barrel and a rum barrel. There's a rum barrel one. It's insane. So this one is my favorite of all of them. Just the regular bourbon barrel version of the gingerbread stout.
It's awesome. Cool.
Oh, and I got this because I just finished the Richmond Marathon.
Woo!
And these bottles are not cheap.
No.
This is a limited release beer, so it is...
It's like, what, $25 a bottle?
It's not that expensive. It's like $12.
Okay.
But it's a big bottle. It's over a pint. It's 1 pint, 9.4 fluid ounces. So I'm celebrating the fact that marathon training cycle is over, and Christmas is now in session for me, and I'm like ready to go. This is kind of a treat beer. I look forward to it every year. And I was in Richmond, where Hardywood is, and I picked some up on their release day, which happened to be the same day as the marathon.
Yeah. Congratulations. You PR'd? Did you PR?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. But you completed it.
I did.
Good. That's an accomplishment in and of itself.
It was amazing. Good. It was a really good marathon. It was a nice, strong marathon.
Join us in a round of applause for Termite.
Thank you. And thanks to Gordon, who listens to this podcast all the time.
Yeah.
And he has stayed with me the entire training season and encouraged me and helped me, push me, and it's awesome. So thank you, sir.
Let's talk about news. What's going on in the world and what's going on in the gaming world, but specifically the world first. What's the big news from today that our listeners will...
The sad news?
The sad news.
Sad news.
Yeah.
Stanley has passed away.
Yes, the founder of Marvel and creator of many beloved Marvel superheroes, including our, both of our favorite, Spider-Man, is passed away today. Was it today or yesterday?
Today, Monday.
Okay, yeah. So
that is in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So that was very, very sad. So
He's 95.
I know. On the one hand, I'm like, okay, like, like it's not like someone died young. You know what I mean? Like it definitely was like
jerk.
his time, but but at the same time, it's sad. I mean, the legacy he has is pretty incredible, and it's kind of surreal to think that the fourth Avengers movie, the Infinity War 2 or whatever, will be the last cameo.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be sad the cameos are gonna stop.
Yeah,
it's weird because you see him at like every convention, like all the Comic-Cons, New York Comic-Con. And he's always there. There's a massive line. Apparently, it's the longest line and the most sought-after thing at every one of them is Stan Lee's presence there to get a signature. Yep. And I feel like there was no warning of any decline in his health.
Yeah, but
it was just boom, headline. Okay.
That, like these days, I imagine a lot of celebrities probably want to keep their health private. Mm-hmm. So
for financial
that's why
reasons, stock value, and companies,
not just that, but also just who wants their health issues are a very private thing, and I wouldn't necessarily unless it's like I don't want to say a PR stunt, but unless it's not, sometimes it's for like PR reasons or whatever. Celebrities will like make a big deal out of their health issues, but all in all, like if I was struggling with health issues, I wouldn't want to necessarily like open that all up to the whole world. So but that's why it's always so kind of out of left field when like a celebrity has like, even if it's with like depression and stuff like that, like even if they commit suicide, it's like I didn't even know they were depressed, right? So like I didn't know they had that. So often I find celebrity deaths kind of come out of left field because you never really know that they're struggling, or that they have health issues in the first place. So in honor of Stan Lee and Marvel, which we at the podcast here love, I wanted to do a quick surprise DLC. This is not our main DLC, but again, kind of last minute. Since
it's a
this
DLC
just happened today.
to the DLC.
Yeah. This is a game that I created today called Hulk or Spidey.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 3 video game challenges.
Okay.
And if you were if it was happening to you, not just you playing the video game, but if you were in that world and that thing was happening, would you rather be Hulk or Spider-Man to deal with it?
All right,
you ready?
Let's go.
Okay, so the first one is
Spider-Man.
The Water Temple. Hulk or Spider-Man? Water Temple.
Definitely Spider-Man.
Definitely Spider-Man? Yeah. I would agree with that.
Crawling on walls, being able to web sling and cheat.
In the one sense of the Water Temple made me angry. And whenever the Hulk gets angry, he gets stronger. So the angrier I got in the Water Temple as the Hulk, the easier it would be to just break through the walls and finish it.
I guess you could just barrel yourself straight to the end and be done.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was thinking of like the long shot is the weapon or is the treasure, and you have your web sling, so you just have
to go through like the last door,
which means all of the frustrations of the temple are gone.
Yeah, and it would be hard to fight Morpha as Hulk.
Specifically,
it would be hard to fight Morpha as Hulk. All right, cool. That's number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, the library in Halo, Hulk or Spidey?
Hulk,
yeah. Just crushing floods.
Yeah, just running through.
Yeah, the only downside I could possibly see is the universe would be over if one of those little things happened to attach itself to the Hulk spray. And then Hulk Flood would just destroy everything.
Fire a Halo at it now.
But Hulk I would trust that Hulk would be less likely to be corrupted than Spider-Man. So.
Really? An anger-ridden beast that has no self-control?
Crushing would
be hard to
be
taken over?
The Flood are more vulnerable to like kinetic weapons than they are to bullets, essentially.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So and the Hulk is all about just kinetic energy. So I would still want to do. I still would want to do it as the Hulk.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the last one. That was the one I was trying to think of before we started. Just a last challenging video game thing. So I'm gonna go with like Dark Souls. Would you rather do Dark Souls, the whole entirety of Dark Souls, as Hulk or Spider-Man?
Well, I think Spider-Man would be more fun.
I agree,
because you'd have the speed and the spider sense to predict things and like
it'd
dodge
probably
stuff
be objectively easier as Hulk.
Yeah,
but
it'd be boring.
Way more fun. Yeah, exactly. It'd be like
because you just mash all the buttons and kill the guy.
Yep,
that's it. Square, he's dead. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Hulk or Spidey in honor of the legacy that Stan Lee has given to our lives. I would say that like these days, Hulk and Spider-Man are probably like my favorite superheroes. So,
really?
Yeah.
I always thought Hulk was kind of boring.
I thought so too, but I love his portrayal. Ever since the Avengers, I've loved his portrayal. He's not a good standalone here. Like Hulk standalone movies are boring.
Yeah.
But Hulk and his dynamic with the rest of the Avengers is fantastic.
Did you see Thor Ragnarok? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I like.
We saw it together, jerk.
In the theaters. Movie Pass worked back then.
Yeah,
those are the good old days.
Yeah, good old days.
That was kind of the only like nod to the Hulk that I liked. But same with
Because you didn't like him in Avengers, the first Avengers.
It's not that I don't like him. It's just he just doesn't really like Captain America. Nah.
I love Captain America.
Nah.
There's nothing wrong with you, son.
He's kind of a boring hero. He just has super strength and speed. I'm like, nah.
So the other thing I want to talk about more in line with video game news is really interesting because when this episode, today an episode dropped that was the Pokemon episode.
Yes.
So if you guys want to do the math and figure out when we recorded this, we are recording this the day the Pokemon episode dropped.
Yep.
And by sheer coincidence, we did not plan this because we did not know anything about it, but by sheer coincidence, a trailer dropped for the movie Detective Pikachu.
With Ryan Reynolds.
We
did know about
voicing
this. I didn't
Pikachu.
talk about it on the podcast, but it was known before today that it was coming.
Didn't really, I'm sure I had heard something about it, but I didn't really realize what it was. Seeing the trailer.
I didn't see the trailer yet.
Okay, I saw the trailer, and it is exactly what I want out of a video game movie.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not trying, it's kind of, we had an episode where we talked about, like, movie adaptations of video games and like what we want to see in them. And I kind of said there are like two approaches. Either one, just like make a compelling story in that world, or two, like try to do what you can to kind of capture what makes the game magical. What looks like this is doing is it's going in the other direction. It's like we're going to just take the world of Pokemon and make an interesting story out of it.
Okay.
They're not trying to like, here's the Pokemon trainer doing a big Pokemon trainer thing. They're not just trying to remake the anime in live action or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you know what the world of Pokemon is. Like, you know what Pikachu is. You know what Charizard is. You know what Greninja is. Like, we're going to tell like a fun like detective story.
Is it still or stop animation?
No, it's like CG.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, so they're trying to like, so they're just like, here's like a funny, like with Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. Inexplicably can inexplicably talk, or more importantly, like the main character can understand what he's saying.
This is Deadpool, right?
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, who did the voice.
I get
of
Ryan Gosling and Ryan Reynolds mixed up.
No, it's Ryan Reynolds, and so it's pretty amusing. Like, that's
so weird. That's gonna be hilarious.
It is.
Like, this is Deadpool. Who's
he's like
raunchy.
He's like, so most people hear me, whenever they hear me go Pika Pika. What? So it looks good. It looks really.
Sweet.
It looks like it could be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's not bad because again, this could be another one of those like this could be a good video game movie finally. So just I mean. It looks like they are leaning into the Pokemon thing, though. They're not just, like, in the background, like the Pokemon are in the forefront. There's a scene where Pikachu is being chased by a Charizard, and it looks freaking BA. Like, it just looks awesome. So, it looks like a fun
There was
scene.
always that episode of Pokemon where they get stranded on an island, and you see the whole episode kind of from Pikachu's point of view.
Oh, yeah,
Like, finds, I've always loved that because it was all about the Pokemon without the humans. It's like, how do the Pokemon communicate with each other?
Yeah.
When they band together and become friends and like work through, and Team Rocket's there. It's awesome. It's like one of my favorite episodes of the anime, and it's really early in season 1. But
yeah, it was with all the giant robot Pokemon. Yeah, it was cool. So I'm excited about that. I just think it was really kind of interesting timing. If that trailer had only dropped before, we could have talked about Detective Pikachu on that episode. So,
but it's also the same week that Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu come out.
Yeah,
that's why we did it.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's kind of funny that like, oh wow,
in addition to that,
in addition to that, so cool. So if you want to hear more about our thoughts on Pokemon, just check out that episode. It was a couple episodes ago. So. Cool. Detective Pikachu may be one of our future favorite things, but right now let's talk about
doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Favorite things.
No zest.
No zest.
You just did it. You just did it OG.
Nice and you gotta know what to expect sometimes.
All right.
Yeah, you gotta. Sometimes you just want a cheeseburger.
Oh,
no sauce.
Stop.
Sometimes you just want the meat and the bread.
And sometimes you want a double chalupa box with a chance to win an Xbox.
Yeah, and you want to put some fire sauce on it. Yeah. So, favorite things of the first segment of every episode. That's what I was thinking. Where we talk and update you with what our favorite thing for the week is. So, I will start.
Go ahead.
My favorite thing. Past weekend, we had a baby shower for my son, who will be born in a few months, and my side of the family threw our baby shower for us. My favorite thing is what my dad got us, and I should not so much say got us as made us.
Ooh!
He handmade a giant like rocker / like napper.
Jeez!
So like what it is it's like a
furniture?
A napper. Yeah, it's a huge piece of furniture. It's like a napper, so it's not like a full crib, but it's like just a box with a pad and some blankets and pillows in it.
Yeah.
And then attached to it is a chair for me or my wife to sit in while the child sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is built on like rockers. So you can rock the child to sleep. It's paint. He painted it. He carved it. Like he bought the wood and he made it.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's like a significant piece of furniture. It's going to be really frustrating to move. It does take 2 people to move it. It's not a light piece of furniture.
And a truck probably to transport it.
Exactly. But it could support not only my entire weight, but my dad was like, yeah, I could probably support like 4 or 5 of you.
Wow.
Just in the crib part of it. So it's beautiful. Yeah, beautiful thing. I told Dad, I was like, you should make. I was like, how much did it cost you in materials and time to make that?
Mm-hmm.
He said it took me full weeks, but he works. He works as well, so it was like a full-time job. So 2 weeks with a full-time job and $150. I'm like, you could sell that for $500 at least.
Probably more than that.
I agree. Yeah, like in our area, people would like, especially like handcrafted, customizable. Like he could do whatever you like. Not to some degree, he's not like the most skilled wood carver in the world, but like he could do a little bit. He could paint it the way you wanted it and like decorate it and stuff like that.
Make some money.
I'm like, yeah, you should just make that. Just do that. Like, quit your job and make those. Make things like that. Like, be a Ron Swanson. Be like my dad. Like, should have been Ron Swanson this entire time and just make stuff. So it's awesome. He made that for us completely. You know, for us, it's completely free. It's so cool. So yeah, that's awesome. My favorite thing.
Yeah. I'm going to cop-out answer. My favorite thing right now is this beer. I look forward to it every year. It comes out, and it's hard to find, kind of. This is probably, of the limited releases, the easier one to get, but it's still limited, and I look forward to it. So this Hardywood Bourbon Barrel Gingerbread Stout is amazing. Nice. And I look forward to it every year.
It is a worthy favorite thing. One of my favorite beers.
Other favorite beer for the holidays is Mad Elf Ale. So whenever we
had that last year.
We will have that again on this podcast again. I will probably use that as my favorite thing. I'm just warning you. So yes.
Cool.
This beer that we're drinking is Christmas in a Bottle.
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
All right. Now for the real DLC. This is the one we actually had planned. Again, if you remember, last week's episode was really last minute, kind of off the cuff, and we completely 100% changed our topic like that night while we were talking before we started recording. So if you want to listen to that or didn't listen to that, we talked about hype and disappointment, and we had 3 examples of games that we think exemplify that from recent gaming news.
Yep.
This week, what was supposed to be last week's was we were supposed to be talking about esports, which is our topic today. And
electronic sports.
Yes, esports. It's we can't really have a gaming podcast without talking about esports. So this is our chance to kind of sit down and kind of really dig into what are esports and what impact do they have on the industry and the culture. So that's going to be our main topic for today. So those longtime listeners know that DLC is sort of like a subtopic, a sort of sub-discussion, and many more fun take on whatever our discussion is. Sometimes it is as simple as like who would win in a fight. Sometimes it has something to do with our topic where it's a little bit more of like a fun thought experiment with the topic. So that is what this week's is. So oftentimes video games will feature some kind of in-game sport or in-game competition that you get to like play and do. So my DLC for the day is what in-game competition or sport, and it could be the game itself in some cases, but what in-game competition or sport would you not only wish was real, but would love to go see in person? Like go to a stadium and see this sport or in-game competition happen if it were real.
Yes. You know mine, don't you?
I do. Of course I know yours.
What's mine?
Yours was like Blitzball from Final Fantasy X.
And it's still going to be that. Like, I loved Blitzball so much.
I was going to use that as an example, but I was like, no, it's going to be his.
It is mine.
It's going to be his answer.
And the best example is that there's a cinematic in Xanarkand at the beginning of Final Fantasy X that shows what the arena looks like.
Yeah.
And it's a giant ball of water. Like, it's not even in a swimming pool. But the idea is it's basically underwater soccer.
Yep.
And you have different... It's kind of like Quidditch from Harry Potter mixed with soccer, but underwater.
Yeah.
That's the best way to talk about it.
I
It's
always wanted to know how they never show or explain or do anything to indicate how these characters breathe underwater.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
There's not like, oh, we're going to cast a magic spell before they go in there. Nope, they just happen to have like these denizens of Xanarkand / whatever the world of Final Fantasy X is called. They all just happen to have incredible superhuman lung capacity is the only explanation I have.
That's all you got. And the ball looks like an inverse of a golf ball. So a golf ball has little indentations throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
The Blitz ball has dimples all over it.
Yeah.
Or bumps.
Yeah, bumps.
Yeah, bumps all over it, which I don't know how that works as far as water traversal. But if you notice, it's like underwater mines. Or like surge, what are they called? Underwater bombs. There's a word for it.
Depth
charges.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, from like World War II, the big giant spiky balls that blow up.
Yeah.
That were supposed to attack submarines. So that's what the ball looks like. And they kick it around. They do flips and stuff because it's all underwater, so there's no gravity. It's awesome.
Cool. So you'd want to see that in person?
Yeah, totally. Did you like the cinematic in Final Fantasy X?
There's pretty cool.
Seats that go all the way up around the thing, like Star Wars-esque, like 360-degree arena.
Yeah. Mine, I have two, and one was kind of a last-minute thing, so I'll take the first one first. I'm not a huge fan of this game. Like, I don't really care about this game. I know it's really popular, but if it actually existed in real life, it would be so much fun to go see, and that is Rocket League.
Oh, yeah.
A giant game of soccer played with cars.
Yep.
Like, it'd be like NASCAR mixed with, like, football, and would be so cool to actually see.
In the game, are the drivers actually in the car?
I don't know.
Are there people, or is it remote controlled?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it would look really cool to actually see like
a
game played like that. Like high speed, just and then like especially when they crash and stuff would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be cool. The other one's a little bit more esoteric, and so I'll explain by saying I have some friends from my fight choreography days, from the days when I was learning how to do that.
Yeah.
So like what A-Ray does. But they put on a show, I think it's in Chicago, and it's called I think it's called Human Chess. Or real life chess or something like that.
Okay.
And what they do is they have these they play chess, but it's with real people. But whenever like two of the chess pieces encounter with one another, they have a choreographed fight. So that the whole board clears off, and the knight and the rook or whatever will have a fight that's been pre-choreographed. Cool. Yeah. And then of course, obviously, again, since it's choreographed, the winner is based on what the piece interaction is. So whoever, like, if a knight beats a rook, I don't know that many rules of chess, but
it's whose turn it is.
Right. The knight, whoever would win. So that's like a really cool idea, like fights, but like with a game. I would love to see that kind of thing, but like on a huge scale with like Gwent or something like that, like live Gwent, but with like real, like choreographed, like large scale battles. Cause like each of the cards in Gwent are like your infantry and your like stuff like that, like riflemen and whatnot. So you'd have like actual large, huge scale, like you know, those reenacted battles. It would be like that, but with like
this is wizard's chess
pieces. Yeah. So that's what I want. That's my
this is already done in Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter.
No, but that's like magical. I'm talking about like real people doing battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like LARPing.
Yes, but not LARPing, because it's not. LARPing is more of a kind of improvised fighting thing. Like this would be actual choreographed, so it looks real. Yeah. Like what your expectations of a fight are. So yeah.
Like a lightsaber fight in Star Wars.
Yeah, sure.
It's choreographed.
Yeah, it is. But lightsabers aren't. I'm talking about like real steel and real gunpowder and stuff like that. That's what I want.
Okay.
So real arrows, all that fun stuff. Cool. Well, safely real, like blunted, but looks real.
What if you took an arrow to the knee?
All right, that's DLC for the day.
I had a mouthful of beer on that one.
You did.
It was great.
All right, so main topic. Like we said, we're talking about esports. Really, just kind of all about esports. So we've got some questions, and we're gonna have a fun discussion about.
And I'm gonna have a little Termite caveat here.
Cool.
I know little to nothing about esports. This is not my forte. It's not my realm. I'm not in it. I don't know. I don't follow it.
You don't follow it, yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of things about the gaming industry. I know a lot of things about developers and publishers and companies and history and all this stuff about gaming. None of it's esports.
Yeah, esports kind of just came out of...
So everything I know about is from the research for this episode. It didn't come
out of nowhere, because anyone who's been paying attention to the gaming industry for the past, 10 years could see it coming, but it really has kind of blown up in the past, I would say... maybe 8 years, like, and really in the last like 5 years, it's become like a major money making thing. So yes. So let's go into the details of that. What is esports and when did it become a thing?
Esports is electronic sports. So it's like professional, or at least what it looks like today, is professional teams like you would see in an actual sport, but centered around a game. So there's sponsorships, there's leagues, there's specific games that people are playing, there's uniforms, there's professionalism, sportsmanship. There's money involved, prize tickets, it's televised. It is a full-on like sporting event centered around a video game, which is why it's an esport, electronic sport.
We'll get into the term sports and its application to esports in a little bit. I think the kind of best way I would sum up the description of it is it really is the far like extreme other end of, kind of what we talked about with video games as an art form. This really is video games as a competitive prowess, prestige. I mean, so that's why I think that's why they're called esports, is because like the closest thing we can compare it to is sports, modern American sports, where it's like a huge money, huge competition to see who is the best of the best in this particular form of competition. So again, by its very nature, it's going to exclude certain games. There's not going to be esports of single player, or like the kind of games Termite and I like, single player,
which is why
RPG games. Esports are all competitive, like multiplayer competitive games. So they are your Calls of Duties, your Halos, your Overwatches, your Leagues of Legend, the games where it's like there are people you are playing against another person, so PvP to its core. You're playing against another person, and it is win or lose based on skill and knowledge of the game. That is what kind of esports are, and so there's only very specific games that really apply to esports. So kind of where do esports come from? Like, how did we get to essentially what was tournaments with your friends on the couch to national multi-million-dollar industry-wide competitions?
We're going to start even before Friends on a Couch.
Oh, okay.
We're going to start at the advent of video games, period.
Okay.
In labs at universities. Before the home console was even a thing.
Wow, that's real far back.
At Stanford University in 1972, there was a video game called Space War that just set not the world on fire. It didn't create a giant like fervor for video games, but it was the cutting edge. It was not ever done before, brand spanking new. Hey, we can take these weird computer things and do fun games with them. And they were lab competitions. So they were the developers, the people around that got it, that were like enamored with it. Like individual students competed at Space War for scores. There's actually the Rolling Stone magazine got involved, and players competed for a year subscription. A 1 year subscription to Rolling Stone.
It's not even like you'll be on the cover of Rolling Stone.
No, it has nothing to do with It's just like here's a $25 subscription.
That's a real basic.
Yeah. So super old. In 1980, the first video game competition was kind of made public with Space Invaders.
Okay.
Which was very much the successor to Space War. That was much more popular. It was in arcades. It was on Atari. It was a Nintendo game. So Space Invaders is super popular now, made by Taito, Japanese company. But 10,000 players participated. It was like the world's first kind of, so to speak.
Like sponsored video game.
I wouldn't even say it was sponsored. Kind of before that.
It's just kind of like community organized.
Right. Yeah. It's just 10,000 players were involved. So it was a big deal.
So
but
it's
still
like
a
lot of people descending in one place. Yeah.
Still very grassroots. No one was doing this except the players themselves.
Yeah. It's not like the makers of the game, like, again, they're just making a product.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about esports. We'll get into a little bit more about it, but like they're just making a product. They don't expect that like people are going to want to be like, we want to find out who's the best.
Right.
And so really its origin is just, like you said, grassroots, people getting together and being like, we want to see who is the best at this. And so the only way that humans ever have known how to do that is we'll get them all together in one place and like make them go head to head until we have a winner. So,
and I mean, some of you guys may have heard through just publicity, like Donkey Kong was apparently a giant competition back in the day, and even though it wasn't declared quote an esport, it's still a competitive thing to try and get the highest score. So that was even a thing. And that's again very grassroots. Nintendo never made Donkey Kong to be
an esport.
that. But that's just what players made of it.
Yeah. So in 1997, we saw the world's first esports event. Did they call it esports event?
It wasn't called esports.
It wasn't called
at
esports,
the time,
yeah, but it kind of
but
is
in hindsight,
recognized.
now that we have the term, we can define it as what it was.
Yeah, so it's a Red Annihilation tournament, which was for the game Quake, made by the makers of Doom.
Yeah, ID Software.
So id Software kind of made Quake as like Doom was a single player game, so they kind of took the engine of Doom and made like a multiplayer,
right,
like competitive shooter out of it.
Doom was not really. I mean, it was 3D in the sense of like first person perspective, and you could go through very basic like 3D-ness. But Quake was really the successor to Doom that took the jump from like 32-bit 2D that looked like it was 3D to actual 3D. So Quake was the first actual 3D, like first-person shooter.
So that was did you happen to know in your research who sponsored that tournament? Like, or did anyone sponsor the tournament, or was it still community organized? Okay,
I have no idea.
That same year saw StarCraft, the first StarCraft, with the Cyber Athlete Professional League CPL was created for StarCraft. So it's interesting. It's just interesting that it goes back that far, because obviously I was around when those games were out, but it just never is. Again, it never really was like news. And yeah, I would have said, of course. Like, if you asked me, like, do you think that like players are going to get together to see who is the best worldwide at StarCraft? I'd say, yeah, absolutely, they're going to do that. But it wasn't a quote unquote sporting event. It wasn't something where there were commercials. It wasn't something where there was money. It wasn't something where there was like huge. It wasn't stadiums full of people.
Right.
It was almost always just like a bunch of nerds all getting together to see who's the best. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the what we saw in the 2000s?
Yeah, the turn of the millennium, the major international tournaments such as the World Cyber Games and Electronic Sports World Cup were launched, followed by this is what we know of today, MLG, Major League Gaming, in 2002. 2002 in the gaming world was, let's see, when did the original Xbox was what, 2001?
Yeah, that was like 2 years before WoW came out.
Yeah,
like WoW
2004 was WoW. So 2002 was after Halo 1, but before Halo 2. So it was kind of like, because Halo 2 was monumental in MLG.
Yeah.
There was actual Halo 2 teams and kind of like taking the console space and introducing that to esports for the first time. Because before it had just been proprietary hardware like Space Ward, Space Invaders, and then PCs like Quake. So now we have like console level, mass appeal.
Yep.
It's just getting to more of the masses. It's iterative.
Right.
It goes from a lab in a school to a community of people that want to play Space Invaders to, okay, we're going to form a league around computers, to now it's Xbox Live and it's everywhere. It's in your home. Like, I can participate in my bedroom. Like that kind of reach.
Yeah. And
so it's growing
absolutely
from 97 to 2002.
For sure. Yeah.
Which is 5 years.
Yep. And I still think though for that 2000s time, it still wasn't what I see esports is now.
Right.
And that started to change at the dawn of the new decade, 2011. Everyone's favorite streaming platform, Twitch. Twitch launched, and I think Twitch is really what completely changed.
Yep, that's the absolute mass appeal.
Because Twitch was the dawn,
critical mass.
Yeah, Twitch was the dawn of watching other people play video games for entertainment.
Yep.
And that's what esports, at the end of the day, esports is. Esports is just the more, I would say like, I understand esports a little bit more than just regular Twitch shows. Regular Twitch shows are much more about community and like feeling like you're friends with someone and seeing where they belong. Whereas like esports is really like, oh yeah, I want to see the best players in the world go head to head and see who wins. So like if I'm watching esports, it's because I'm like, yeah, I would rather be playing this game for sure, but I can also understand the like appeal of watching the best players in the world do what they're good at. Like,
that is to me the appeal.
Yeah.
There's a whole generation of
like
people
I like playing football, but watching football is also entertaining because I know I'll never be able to do that. You know what I mean? And so it's nice to kind of watch and
you're seeing like the epitome of that sport on TV. But there's a whole generation of gamers that love to just watch players play video games and like at the normal level, right? To me, maybe I'm on the older end of it. I don't get that. I don't take joy in just watching somebody play a game that I could play the same way.
Yeah.
So when I do watch someone play games, it's because they're either a speedrunner where they have like owned that game to the point where they can optimize how fast they can go through it, or it's an esport where they're a complete professional and I can learn from it. So I'm going to watch a professional Smash Bros player because I want to learn how to be better at Smash Bros.
I just learned something today, by the way.
Oh, lay it on me.
Not today. I learned it like yesterday about Smash Bros.
What about it?
I learned for the first time that you can map tilt attacks to your C stick instead of smash attacks. I never knew that.
Yeah.
That changes everything for me, just saying. Because
Really?
I'm so much like my go-to are smash attacks only because they're easier for me to do on the controller.
Yeah.
So I'm awful at tilt attacks. So I'm like, I'm going to map my
Aren't tilt attacks just not pressing the direction and the button at the same time?
No, it's like pressing it gently.
Interesting.
Yeah, smash attacks, you do like a hard directional attack, whereas tilts are like a more like a gentle one. But that's so hard for me to do when I'm like playing Smash Bros. And all tensed up. So like having another button to do that would be awesome. Yeah. So
and there's air tilts and ground tilts, right?
There's air tilts, ground tilts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Tilts. Yeah.
Anyways,
esports. Yeah. Sorry, that just changed because I thought about it because I was like reading about like I was watching an esports video and like reading about it, and they were saying like, oh yeah, we're mapping our tilts to our C stick to make it easier to do, and I'm like, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, so yeah, I definitely understand that, learning about it. Cool. So last year, 2017, so where we are today. So that's like kind of where it all came from, where it came to. So last year, 2017, this is where we are now. This is what esports has become. The total prize money awarded at esports tournaments amounted to $110.6 million.
That's insane.
Yeah.
From 3,765 different
That's the
tournaments.
amount of money they gave out. That's the amount of money the players earned.
Yeah.
It's still not as much as like a salary of like a football player, but still, it like give it 10 years and like you'll be seeing professional esports players will get paid as much as football
probably.
players. And 380 million people will watch esports this year, with North America, China, and Korea, South Korea specifically, where being the like most popular countries to watch esports in.
Yeah.
Global esports revenue, the amount that the companies who host like the leagues and tournaments or whatever, the amount of revenue that's going to pass through them will be $1 billion by next year, 2019.
Yeah.
So again,
it's growing exponentially.
Like next year, next year is like a month away.
Right.
Yeah. So that's according to we've got some links. So that's according to a it's called resources.newzoo.com, but they did a whole report studying the like revenue of esports. So again, this is huge for not just the industry. Like again, esports is now becoming, in a lot of ways, adjacent to the industry. So whereas back in the day, like even back as far back as Halo 2, Bungie was just trying to make a good game that would sell a lot of copies.
Right.
That's what their revenue stream was. Like that's what
it was not made with the intention of esports in mind at all.
Exactly. Now games are being made with esports in mind because it's kind of double dipping. Because not only can you get if I'm a game maker, I'm making a game. I make a game that's competitive multiplayer game. I'm gonna make X amount of money from selling copies to people who want to buy it directly, and then I can, if it becomes a popular esport, I can host tournaments and start making that ad money.
Yeah,
getting that ad revenue in the players. It's equally as like lucrative for them because they get, just like NASCAR, they'll get sponsorships from ad companies, from Razer and these companies that make gaming equipment like
Corsair, Thermite.
Exactly. These are people. The top.
MSI.
The top players use our product, which gets more people to buy. So it's like there is so much money to be had in esports. And so a lot of game companies are rightly now making games with esports, the esports possibility in mind. Because if your game can become big enough to be an esport, that's a huge amount of money.
And the cool part, I guess we'll get into that later about how it affects games in the industry and stuff. But we'll get to there. So, is the term esports an appropriate name?
So this is where
some people will argue, and it's again because we live in this culture where everyone's on one side of the fence or the other, and we're gray. There's no gray. Sorry, we're white or black. Is NASCAR sport is apparently a thing, and I'm like, really? We're arguing whether NASCAR is a sport. It's been 1950s is when that sport was instituted. It's been 60 some years, and no one's diffused that argument yet. It's still
well,
happening.
you always hear like again, for me it goes as far back as high school. To we'd always give the cheerleaders a hard time because we'd say cheerleading or like competition cheerleading is not a sport, and they'd be like, no, it is a sport.
I would say it is,
and so my mind has changed from that over the years because I was a stupid high schooler, probably a little misogynistic, and was like, you girls aren't doing a sport, you're doing dancing or whatever, But so again, that begs the question though. The word sport has certain connotations. The word sport dare I say, has to mean something,
Right.
Because if you can just say everything's a sport, then nothing's a sport.
Podcasting is a sport.
Yeah, exactly. Competitive podcasting. So, but again, that going back, it's such a complicated thing. It's going back as far back as our episode about art. Like, we would say that, like, again, you could also say, like, if everything's art, then nothing's art. So, like, what constitutes art? So this kind of goes back, we're 63 episodes into our podcast, and we're still asking this question, like, what is this thing we're talking about? What is sports? What are video games? Can video games be a sport? So you found a very interesting quote, though, and I like that quote. So say that quote.
Some have argued that, quote, careful planning, precise timing, and skillful execution, end quote, ought to be what classifies an activity as a sport, and that physical exertion and outdoor playing areas are not required by all traditional or non-traditional sports. In a 2014 technology conference, when asked about the recent buyout of a popular game streaming service Twitch, ESPN president John Skipper described esports as, quote, not a sport, they're a competition. Mm-hmm. So obviously ESPN doesn't think
ESPN doesn't think it is either. Yeah, but I do like that idea of, like, okay, a decent definition of a sport is careful planning, precise timing, and skillful execution of something. Right. Which really does apply to video games. Again, where I'm torn, though, is, like, traditionally, like, I think of sports, I think of an athletic competition, a
physical exertion.
Like, my physical ability to do this thing is greater than your physical ability to do this thing. But again, there's a lot of physicality in video games, too. Like, it is much more mental. It is much more of a mental, but it's like reactionary timing. So it's like, it's your nervous system really is what makes you a good gamer. Mm-hmm. But again, knowledge of the game too. So it is hard. Like, I do wonder, I think the ship has sailed in redefining esports. Esports is such a, like, catchy term that it's kind of here to stay.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I'm like, okay, it's not. It is. Yes, esports are. That is the right term, because that is the term that has stuck. That is the term that will sell. That is the term that is, like, in the cultural consciousness now. Mm-hmm. But I do have to. The reason I included this question in our outline is because I really thought it was an interesting discussion to say, like, are esports really is sports the right term for it? Just because I'm like, I wonder if we could have come up with a more accurate term that still is catchy.
I think it's esports. It's called that because everything that's involved in the esports community, it models what our American sports leagues do.
Which is, the other thing.
And so it's just easy to lump them in the similar umbrella. We're going to write contracts in a similar fashion. We're going to establish teams in a similar fashion. Sponsorships are going to work in a similar fashion. Like, everything is going to be the same, except instead of a physical exertion exercise of basketball or football or baseball, it's going to be video games.
Yeah, drawing that comparison and writing that comparison in the cultural consciousness,
right,
is really important for what esports are trying to accomplish. Like, what esports want is they want to be seen as legitimate a competition as football, as a legitimate competition as NASCAR. More importantly, they want the revenue associated with that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They want you to buy jerseys of Overwatch teams. Right. They want you to buy the same headset that the best Fortnite player, uses or whatever. So whether or not it's quote unquote for Penguins neuroticism, whether it's accurate a term or not, it's the term we're stuck with because it's a very intentional term from the markets and the industry that is.
It makes sense. Becoming. If you and I sat down and we're like, hey, let's do X. We're going to look out into the world and see who else is doing something similar to what we're doing. Let's start with that. Why reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah.
So, like, here's an entire, like, in history of United States sports that we can model ourselves after. Why reinvent the wheel from scratch and start this whole thing when we can just adopt the same stuff they're already doing? Mm-hmm. All those processes are already made. Let's just do the same thing, but with Rocket League instead of football.
Yep. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, cool. So esports it is.
Yep, it's there to stay.
Esports it is. All right. Mm-hmm. How are esports? So again, kind of going back to, like, all right, we talked about how there was this era where it was just like these kind of grassroots competitions, these tournaments. And then we also talked about how there's now an industry that's like it's becoming its own thing. Like, esports is becoming its own entity beyond just what gaming and the gaming industry is. what specific ways are esports different than this kind of traditional approach to competitive gaming?
I think I just grasped the essence of that question right now.
Yeah.
And it's not the answers I put in my notes.
Okay.
And I think what you're trying to get at is when you come up with a game, like in the past, before you even think about an esports application of your game, you're just making a good game.
Yeah.
When you are thinking of the esports application of a game, you're trying to polish it and balance it.
Yep.
And that's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like Street Fighter 2 in the arcades was balanced for itself, but if you were to make an esports version of Street Fighter 2, you're going to go above and beyond the balancing for all the characters. You're going to have pros and cons so that not one character has any sort of advantages over any other character at all, regardless of the skill of the player. And I think there's a lot more like intention that goes in there. And a perfect example of a modern game that does this is Splatoon.
Okay.
Splatoon is a Nintendo franchise. The first one came out for Wii U. The sequel is out now for the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the very first commercial announcement for Splatoon 2 for the Switch showed an esports implementation of their game.
Yeah.
With jerseys and stuff. And the first game was never meant to be an esports thing. It was just an online all the time kind of take on the shooter genre, but instead of shooting each other, you're spraying ink around and you're trying to cover more territory than your enemy team with your color ink, which is awesome and super fun. But the esports application means, okay, now the maps have to be a certain standard. All of the weapons have to meet a certain standard so that regardless of the combination of what you're doing, you still have a shot.
Yeah.
It's like I can start out at level 0, day 1, with no guns unlocked, with no gear upgrades, and still have a chance at doing something as the person who's played 3,000 hours of the game. Although he's going to have more skill, he'll probably win.
Yeah.
But there's nothing inherent in the game that gives you an advantage. So there's like that polish and that balancing that happens. I think that's the answer to that question you were looking for.
Yeah, that's part of it. And yeah, you're kind of thinking about it in terms of like what's the sort of expectations from the game makers, the developers side. The other component that I think is part of this question is like what is the kind of expectation now for esports? How the expectation of esports differs from the community side now too. Like whereas back in the day, a traditional competitive game, again, like I said, was all about just figuring out who was the best.
Mm-hmm.
Now what it is, the expectation is like we want to figure out who's the best in a way that's super entertaining and gets us like, you know what I mean? Like it's a world championship now.
Mm-hmm.
But what that lends to it, what I think is great about it ultimately is like, you know, again, these old school grassroots tournaments were filled with drama and butthurtness and just you know, because there's a lot of drama and angst that comes with figuring out who's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a level of professionalism that's expected. If you're a professional gamer, like this is your life, this is your source of income, this is like what you do. So there's now kind of an expectation that you're going to behave in a way that's like
a good sport.
Being a good sport, exactly. And
it's the same standard that's applied to professional sports players.
Exactly. And like again, are football players perfect people? No. Do they act poorly and lash out and are stupid
we hear
sometimes?
About it.
Yes, they are, absolutely. So like again, you can look at professional gamers these days and you could probably find like 20 examples of dudes who are jerks that are professional gamers. But like, again, that's not the expectation. So, and the same thing is true with the community too. Like the expectation around the community is like, okay, like we're watching this thing that we love, that we're all about. Like we're going to get pumped and hyped and excited about it, but we're going to act in the same, same way as sports fans, which I know kind of sounds counterintuitive, but at the same time, like, you know what, like there's going to be good sportsmanship on all sides of it. It's kind of like, I think sportsmanship now is a good term because we have this ideal of what sportsmanship looks like, which is okay, like we acknowledge that as long as the game and everything is fair and balanced, we acknowledge that you are better because of your superior skills.
Yeah.
And
you know, another aspect of that I just thought of is race and gender are no longer at play.
Yeah.
If you look at running, for example, Ethiopians and Kenyans have a genetic advantage. Like the fastest person is Usain Bolt. If you look at every single professional sport is divided amongst men and women. There's the women league and there's the female and there's the men league. There's the Women's Basketball Association, WNBA, and there's NBA, right? Because women cannot compete on a physical level as men on the same level.
Right.
Objectively, it's just science that can't happen. So gaming, there's no bounds.
Right, yeah.
Any gender, any race, doesn't even matter who you are.
I'm
you
sure
got a fair
if
shot.
they really did studies on it, they might be able to come to some determination as to whether or not like certain physical characteristics are associated with the ability to have good reaction time or whatever.
Right.
But that's not, again, knowledge of the game is as important in esports as reaction time or like Twitch skills or whatever. Like, so anyways, let's get into a little bit of the specifics now. Let's really quickly talk about let's go through like as quickly as possible. What are the big dogs of esports, quote unquote? Like, what are the biggest esports games out there right now?
Quake, StarCraft. I'm just kind of going in chronological order. So Quake, StarCraft, Counter-Strike, which was a mod to Half-Life.
Yep.
Warcraft 3, which spawned all of the MOBA genres.
Every MOBA. We talked about that in our MOBA episode.
So Halo 2 were kind of the console shooter representation there. League of Legends and Dota 2, which were the evolution of the MOBA genre that came later. StarCraft 2, which
that's
is
the big one.
That's the biggest one of the biggest ones.
It's been for years, especially in East Asia. Yeah, Korea and China. Like, those games that game is huge.
And it's still going right now.
Yep.
Smash Bros. Melee and Smash Bros. 4 for the Wii U. Smash Bros. Melee there's actually a little bit of drama attached to that. They were adopted in the MLG fighting tournament, but Nintendo didn't like it, so they actually kind of resisted making any changes to Melee. They never wanted Smash Bros. To be an esport, which is weird.
They wanted it to be a casual game, but no, it makes sense. Like, it wasn't. Again, it goes back to like what the designers intended. Like when Smash Bros. Melee came out, it was still that like mid 2000s.
But developers never really went after their games to trying to pull their game out of the esports realm. They kind of relished, except for Nintendo, right?
Except for Nintendo.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Smash Bros. Melee, and then there's Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur 5, King of Fighters 13. Those are still represented today in fighting tournaments for esports, and then Overwatch is the next. Is kind of the current big arena shooter.
Yeah, you did leave out a couple in your list.
I did Rocket League and Team Fortress 2.
Fortnite and PUBG too.
And PUBG.
The Battle Royale games are surprised. I didn't think they were going to be as popular esports as like they now are.
Oh, they're huge.
I found
they're so big.
Yeah, so I found a list of games at that esportsearning.com site that we found from 2018. And these are I'll just go down the list though. These are the top 10 esports games by total amount of winnings awarded.
Okay.
So this is like what the players earned from these games. So that's just what these numbers are. So I'll go through each game and how much money. So the number one esports game this past year was Dota 2 with $39 million awarded. Second, Fortnite, $18 million.
Which is like half of that.
I know,
That's
right?
insane.
Dota is
Second
insane.
place is half of what Dota 2 is.
Dota 2, yep. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, $17 million. League of Legends, $9 million. Overwatch, $6 million. PUBG, $5 million. Heroes of the Storm, $5 million. Hearthstone, $4 million. Call of Duty World War II, $4 million.
Crazy.
And StarCraft 2, $3 million. I do think the other notable thing is on that list, you've got 1, Overwatch, 2, Heroes of the Storm, 3, Hearthstone, 4, StarCraft 2. That's 4 Blizzard games.
Yeah.
That are doling out. When you add them all up, there's still not as much as Dota 2, but there's still a lot of money that's being handed out by Blizzard.
Funny.
And representing the esports world.
Dota 2
really
originated from a
Blizzard
title.
Game. Yeah.
And it kind of goes back. This is now adding a layer, maybe removing the veil, so to speak, of my insight into what Blizzard's priorities are based on the BlizzCon announcements. What is their focus? Very much esports.
Very much esports.
And they are leaning into that.
Yep.
And it shows in their disconnect from their gaming community.
Well, and the Overwatch World Championship took up a whole, it took up a whole part of the convention center was just an arena for the Overwatch World Championships.
And that's not what Blizzard started.
Yeah.
At all. That's not where they were.
No.
They were super into the hardcore PC gamer and the gamers themselves, and they've totally changed and shifted.
Yeah,
I guess I can't fault them because from a business perspective, yes, lean into the thing that makes you money, and esports is going to make you money.
Yeah, and they're doing it well, too. All of those games, I mean, they may not be my particular cup of tea.
Right.
And in comparison, Heroes of the Storm to its competitors is not great, but Overwatch is a fantastic first-person shooter that's really doing a lot differently. Again, Overwatch was one of the few first-person shooters this year that didn't try to do a battle royale mode.
Right.
They stuck with what they do well and continue to do it. Hearthstone, fantastic, for a mobile game that's also on multiple platforms. That's
a card game. It's the only card game on this list.
Great kind of trading card game feel to it. And StarCraft 2 is a freaking classic RTS.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to kind of highlight is I wanted to kind of just sort of briefly talk about, what are the genres that we're seeing, represented here? You're seeing fighting games, shooters of multiple types. You see kind of deathmatch shooters, team shooters, hero shooters, and battle royales.
There's no fighting games in the top 10 though.
There aren't fighting games in the top 10. That's true.
Yeah.
But fighting games were in that other list.
Yeah,
you know?
they were. Yeah.
RTS, real-time strategy games, like hugely represented. And then you got that one card game. You got the card games and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, you can kind of see the genres that really lend themselves to esports.
It's competitive online stuff.
And it like makes sense in hindsight, duh. But like, it's just kind of like it's interesting to kind of stand out. Like this is where those genres, fighting games, shooters, real-time strategy games, esports are their future. Like. And the industry, like, being aware of that, the industry and the community being aware of that. Like, again, it's kind of like, don't fight the tide.
Yeah.
Like, lean into it. And if you really hate esports, then, I'm sorry, find a new genre. Like, or learn to love the genre apart from the esport. You know what I mean? Or learn to love the game apart from the esport. Like, for me with Overwatch, I don't play Overwatch competitively. I have no interest in playing. I literally do not play competitive mode in Overwatch. I play Mystery Heroes because the game's fun to me and I just want to have fun with it.
Right.
But I can still also respect what Overwatch is doing in the esports scene. And you know what? There have been a couple times where I've been interested in following Overwatch as an esport. So we'll get more into that. Did you want to go through the organization? We kind of already talked about the organizations.
I kind of don't because I want to change. I want to shift that into a different question that I just thought about.
Okay.
I'm going to throw this out there off Termite's cuff.
Okay.
When a game is announced that is in a franchise that you're familiar with, that you're excited about, are you turned off by the fact that they're going the esports route or not?
No, actually, quite frankly, because a good example of this is Smash Bros. Ultimate. Okay. Smash Bros. Ultimate is finally the game where Nintendo seems to be leaning into the esport, the Switch in general. Like the Switch was advertised
ARMS, Splatoon 2.
with Splatoon 2, ARMS, Pokken Tournament.
Yep.
Before Smash was even announced, those three titles were heavily featured as like Switch first year Switch titles.
Yep.
And they were like, again, all the advertisements for the Switch showed Splatoon 2 like in an esports environment, like showed like arenas with Splatoon 2 being played by professional gamers.
Yeah.
Smash Ultimate's kind of Smash Ultimate I think is going to be Nintendo's coup de grace with esports, and it is clearly being designed with esports in mind. Like just simple design things like one-on-one games, you take more damage faster from single attacks, meaning that one-on-one matches will take less time.
Right.
Will move at a faster pace than, four-player free-for-alls.
There are modes in the mechanics of the game that are
exactly. There's like
there just for.
It's things like it tracks the amount of stock you have left or the amount of KOs you have, depending on whether you're playing time.
The Omega Stages existence.
Yep, and it'll do things like when you get a killing blow, it'll like zoom in and be really cinematic. Like all of that is to facilitate this game being, like, again, Nintendo is now finally chasing after that esports revenue, and they're really making Smash their crown jewel for that.
And you like that.
Doesn't turn me off
cool
at all. I'm fine with it, because on the one hand, I'm like, oh yeah, this is, as I begin to like realize what esports can, we'll get into like the impact it has, but I'm beginning to realize esports can do, it's starting to make me interested in what are games that I would be happy to follow as esports.
Okay.
And now with the changes that are happening in Smash Ultimate, like, again, that's what a game should do, is like, my number one priority is this game going to be fun for me to play? If I already know it's going to be fun for me to play and they're going for an esports angle, more power to them.
Yeah.
Like, I will not partake. I have no interest in trying to be a professional Smash Bros. Player. But I respect those who can, and I do want to see their skill. Like, I've, more than any other game recently, I've been watching just, like, match-offs, like, one-on-one match-offs in Smash. Yeah. On, like part of it is because I want to see Ultimate footage, because I'm getting hyped for it.
Right.
But it's also nice to see, like, what players can do that I can't. Never will be able to do.
Right, and learning from them. I'm going to give you a different answer.
Okay.
Because I love the one aspect of the esports, the developers going after the esports makes a more polished and more balanced game, and I like that. However, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is an example of a company going after esports and neglecting the aspect of games that I love. Okay. And that is, it did not ship with a single-player campaign for the first time in any Call of Duty. They just went straight for multiplayer only. Yeah. Free-to-play games like Fortnite, microtransactions.
Yeah, things like Fortnite not having a tutorial. Like, they just drop you in the game.
Yeah.
And, like,
there you go.
Throw you to the wolves. They don't tell you how to do or what to do or anything like that. That's kind of crappy, yeah.
The emphasis on the cosmetics, like, you went through this Overwatch kind of thing with me last week when I was asking questions about what can microtransactions get you, and you were showing me skins and what was it, like poses, victory poses, or
there's victory poses
and all these things. The only reason those things are popular is because of the esports lean in, is like because people are watching you play, because you're playing on Twitch online, so you want those special skins, you want those cosmetic bonuses, which to me are completely meaningless. Like I have no excitement about
development
it at all.
time that's poured into that's not poured into gameplay.
I feel like the esports drive, or like the revenue and the money, is kind of driven the microtransaction drive as well.
It can,
and so, like
it's
the loot boxes and those things are kind of married in a way.
Yeah,
and so I don't like and another example with a different genre is Street Fighter V. I was really interested in Street Fighter V, but it launched with just a multiplayer component. Nothing else. Super, super thin client, tiny, like no content at all. Just go online and fight each other because it was made to be an esports fighter.
Yeah,
and I like Street Fighter. But I love Street Fighter, and there's always been some weird kind of arcade where you have like this
you fight
cheesy dialogue
one after another. You're just doing this. It's not like a I don't know. Some games I agree, like Call of Duty. Like again, we've seen first person shooters that have told good stories before. Halo tells a great story. BioShock, again, we've seen that before.
Those are made for story.
Those are games that can. Well, but again, we've seen that genre can do storytelling well. Fighting games have never had good story for the most part. Like Soul Calibur's story is stupid. Like it's just one fight after another, and like it's kind of lame. Like don't get me wrong, I'm stoked about the adventure mode in Smash Bros, but I'm not expecting it to be an amazing, groundbreaking story that's worth an Oscar. Oh gosh, give Kirby an Oscar for that performance. Like no, I'm not expecting that. So,
but the Street Fighters of the past versus the Street Fighters now, there's like Marvel versus Capcom, X-Men versus Street Fighter. Those old kind of past fighting games were just fun for what they were doing, and not like touted as these like online only fighters where you're outmatched all the time and you're completely not gonna have a good time. Like, whatever's presented to you on the disc that you buy was worth buying, and now I'm feeling like it's getting cheaper and cheaper and shallower as they focus on just the online component and not anything else.
Yeah, I guess where my mindset's starting to change, because I think I would have agreed with you like even as early as 2 years ago. Where my mindset's starting to change based on where esports is going and what I'm seeing in the industry is I'm no longer seeing it as something that I want. I'm no longer seeing it as something as I want to play, as something as I want to watch.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I see a game, again, Smash Bros. Is a great example. I absolutely want to play Smash Bros., but I'm definitely going to play casually with friends. Right. I'm not ever going to go online and play competitive to see where I rank. I don't care. I don't give two craps about it. But a large amount of the gameplay is, like, a large amount of the development time is going into making that a good experience for those who do.
Right.
But it's also going into, like, making the game an entertaining esport to watch. And so that kind of segues me into our last question that I want to discuss, which is like how esports are changing the landscape of the gaming industry and the gaming culture. And I think that the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that I'm going to say that I think esports is our best. Honestly, I think esports is the best hope the gaming industry has in getting us out of the dominance of mobile gaming and back into AAA titles. And my reasoning is this. Esports, there's so much money and possibility and revenue that can come into esports through ads and all that stuff. Like, again, the same amount of money that goes into sports can be going into esports. And in order for esports to be successful, you have to have a spectacular thing to watch, something that's entertaining and fun to watch. It's not that fun to watch people compete playing a mobile game.
Right.
It's incredibly fun to watch people compete in a well-polished, beautiful looking, great graphics AAA title. So
with really good presentation and cinematic flair and like filmography.
People are gonna want to watch. People are gonna watch people play Smash Bros, for example, and gonna go buy it,
right? Because
it looks so much fun to play. In the same way that people watch football or soccer and say, "Wow, that looks fun to play. I want to go learn how to do that and go do that." Again, self-sustaining, because then it breeds more eventual future esports players, possibly. But in general, it just gets people to watch it. You know, you want something that people can watch. So if games are being made for esports and getting made so that people watch them, I mean, you listed here, you said it's validity of gaming culture. Yes, it just furthers...
Well, the reason why this podcast exists is because we as a gaming the gaming industry is now prevalent in our culture. You
Yeah.
can go to Target and you can see pajamas and clothes and knickknacks, coffee mugs, stuff you hang on your wall. Like, gaming is everywhere. Super Mario is all over the place now. And when I was a kid growing up, I was a weird nerd who
Yeah,
played video games. It was not okay to play video games or talk about. And now it's everywhere. Lunchboxes, cereals are being
as
made.
far as there's
like,
stadiums full of people just to watch other people play video games.
Now we have
So,
that. Like, this is the next evolution. The next step is like the validity of gaming in our culture today now as a recognized, organized sport
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah.
For like just talking about Fortnite is taking the world by storm. There are kids doing dances based on Fortnite as if it's like dab. Like the music industry, which introduces weird kind of cultural dance moves or phrases, is now at the same level. Gaming is now at the same level as that. There are kids doing dances from Fortnite in school. They're wearing those clothes. They're dressing like their characters, their avatars. Like it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and
it's because of esports.
Yep. And you said earlier that like esports, again, they're making games as polished and balanced as possible. They're making as good of an experience as possible because they want it to be an entertaining and fair competition for people to watch. That can only benefit gamers in regards to the quality of the games that are going to come out of that.
And
so
I'm excited about Smash Bros. Ultimate for that reason too.
So again, I think esports is we're finally seeing the kind of comeback of AAA gaming, because we're finally seeing like people want to see like good, polished, beautiful, interesting games. They're not just wanting to. Gaming is no longer something you just do on your phone, so that are made as mindlessly and cheaply as possible. You know what I mean, to get you to buy microtransactions. Now, yes, microtransactions are still a piece. Wow, it's hard to say that word fast. But again, it's because we're getting these really polished, awesome, cool, engaging experiences because they're also meant to be entertaining to watch. Because there's like the gaming industry has learned that there's money in that, and they're now trying to like foster that as much as possible. So
I mean, the mobile gaming industry is still ridiculously more lucrative than any console gaming is.
And I'm not really trying to trash it, but I am saying that's not something I enjoy.
Well, yeah,
I'm
we're
enjoying
quote, hardcore gamers, but for mass appeal, cell phone games make way more money than any PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo thing can touch.
Yeah.
And if that's why there's a race to the bottom with the free to play and the microtransactions and all that stuff exists, because of the mobile gaming market. Everyone from different age groups, from like kids that are 3 years old to 80 years old, are playing cell phone games, tablet games. They're everywhere. They're huge. It's like a whole thing. So that makes tons of money.
Yeah.
I like that esports is not doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not leaning into the mobile industry. It's totally staying at the PC console portion of gaming and making those bigger quality experiences.
Yeah, exactly. One final surprise question. Well, I've mentioned a couple times in this discussion the two games that I'm interested in following because of following the esports of are both Overwatch and Smash Bros. Are there any games that have started like to kind of tempt you to follow them from an esports perspective recently in the past year or so? Is there any games that you, or maybe to phrase it this way, is there any game out there that you would be interested in following the esports scene of?
No.
Nope. Okay. That's fine.
I can't.
You're not interested in following professional Smash Bros?
I would watch like a specific match with a specific character to learn how I can do that.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't just watch it.
You wouldn't just want to see who's the best Smash Bros.
Right,
player.
Yeah, not at all. Okay. And maybe that can change in the future because like with sports teams, you get to know a team, you get to know a community, you get to know certain people that you maybe went to college with or like in your community that are now professional. All it takes is like a person I have interacted with to be an esport professional, and now I'm in. Like, oh sweet, there's an in for that person. Let's interview him on this podcast. Let's get to know this person from Fredericksburg who's awesome at this game, and now I care about this game. I think that's what it would take.
Gotcha.
But as of now, I've never really been interested in watching people play games.
Okay.
I don't watch esports.
That's fine.
I have almost bought Overwatch because it looks fun, and I've played it before with the free-to-play stuff and the betas and things, but the esports portion of Overwatch has not leaned me to want to buy it more, ever.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, well, cool. Interesting. Yeah. All right, well, that's our discussion for today. Tell us what your thoughts are on esports, if our conversation has made you more intrigued or less intrigued by esports, if you think that they are ruining gaming forever. We'd be happy to hear what your thoughts are on that, and all things considered, we just want to hear what maybe you are a super huge esports fan. So, what's your favorite esport? What do you follow? What do you watch? Who's your favorite player and/or team? So, yeah.
And we haven't told anyone where you can find us yet.
I know, right? We almost got through a whole episode without, so...
You can find
Surprise.
us at 80bitpodsmash.com is our landing website, where there are links to Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at 80bitpodsmash across all of those platforms. Find us however you want. You can email us at 80bitpodsmash@gmail.com. We would love to hear your feedback, your topic ideas, discussion ideas, as well as your reactions to our shows and any questions you might have for us. We would love to have those segments on our show.
All right, but as always, until next week, play on, Pod Smashers. I'm bringing it back!
We'll just see you next week.